power imbalance and religion together, there is a great risk of abuse. I have met many pastors who use their ability to counsel women to return to domestic violence situations. I've heard pastors counsel women to separate and then return them after a time period to domestic violence situations. I've heard pastors basically warn women that if you leave a violent partner or seek divorce for any reason but adultery, you will go to hell. I've also heard a lot of pastors give good advice. I would not ever recommend going to a religious counselor, because when you need counseling, you would want to go to someone who is the highest educated, the person with the most boundaries, pitfalls, so many hoops to jump through to even sit in a chair of a psychologist. You want somebody who has gone through a ridiculous amount of training, supervision, and who can perform the job basically with their arms tied behind their back. I would never feel comfortable going to a religious leader because they usually lack a master's or doctorate degree. If I'm going to share things that are extremely sensitive and open myself up to vulnerable power imbalances, I want to choose somebody that has a doctor in front of their name or someone who has a master's degree in the best education within psychology. I am not going to waste my time going to somebody who has as much training in psychology as somebody who got a business degree. Because when you look, and I've done some deep research into the different denominations, a lot of these pastors, I don't know the percentage, but a good number of pastors out there have as much psych experience and psych education as somebody who took Psych 101. Some have a bit more experience. Maybe they have a degree in psychology, but they never got a master's or doctorate degree. That's not somebody I would go to. There are a lot of pastors out there whose psych awareness of psych and psychological factual information is at the level of someone who took one brief psych class in college. Taking Psych 101 does not make you qualified or ethical enough to counsel anyone. Anybody who doesn't have at least a master's or a doctorate degree, I would not recommend going to for any professional advice. If you want personal advice, like friend to friend, that's fine. But if you're dealing with any form of abuse, life-changing decisions, marriage, marital issues, like anything non-violent issue, I would recommend going to a professional with a master's or doctorate level of experience. You want someone picking around in your brain that is responsible enough to safeguard the autonomy you have. Plus, they have so many checks in place within their own board of medicine. I'm under the board of medicine. I have expectations of ethical behavior, expectations of behavior I'm not allowed to do. I am under many different forms of ethical medical boards, which I answer to directly. If anyone were to complain about the service I provide, which is professional, ethical, and extremely detailed and legal, I would go before the board of the medicine of whatever state I'm licensed and give an account of my behavior. The problem with going to pastors, the majority of pastors don't have a psych degree. And graduating from a bachelor's college program with a psych degree is not what I'm talking about. If someone doesn't have at least a master's degree in psychology, they're not the kind of people you want digging around in your brain. I've known a lot of people that went to pastors for assistance when it came to extremely sensitive behavior, like online adult porn addiction, what we call sexual dysfunctions, trauma, religious questions. I think the only thing you should really see a pastor about is if your issue is focused on religion. If you need to be counseled for questions about your faith, whether or not the person you want to marry qualifies as a good partner based on your theology. But when it comes to the mind and to legal safety, go to a professional who has at least a master's degree. I would personally never see someone without a doctor in front of their name, because I know the standard of ethics and legal requirements they've met and exceeded to hold that established position. And counselor is usually someone who doesn't have a master's or a doctorate degree. Now, there are always exceptions. I've met a few people in physical therapy who called themselves a counselor with a bachelor's degree. And as long as you meet the state requirements for the title in which you hold, and you wield that power imbalance ethically with care, I don't see anything wrong with it. But if the situation isn't exclusively a biblical or religious one, go to a professional psychologist. Better yet, go to a doctor of psychology who specializes in the field you're having an issue or need information about. A lot of psychologists have specialties. I've known some that do religious trauma, CSA trauma, marital counseling, child psychology. There are so many different types and specialties of psychology, similar to, like, there are many different types of medicine you can practice and be a specialist for. But if it's not a religious issue, go to a doctor of psychology. Choose somebody who has the highest level of education, because that's what you deserve. You deserve somebody who will guard and assist you in going towards a goal that you've established. That's what therapy is. You establish what you want out of the therapy relationship, and then the psychologist helps you from point A to point B, which is your goals. And when you meet one goal, some people create a new goal. Some people just go to therapy to resolve one issue. There are no rules unless it's about behavior and expectation. And I've known many psychologists. The issue is when people who don't know any better, people in a vulnerable position, like church members, believe they're getting counseling from a pastor or senior member of leadership, believing that they have as much credentials, education, and training as a doctor of psychology. Just because a pastor has the title Dr. So-and-so doesn't mean the doctoral was given for psychology any more than someone's name doctor means they operate on people. There are many kinds of doctors. And there are doctors in Christianity, especially in fundamentalist Christianity like Baptist and Calvinism, who set themselves up to use their doctorate in theology to kind of, I call it the sin of omission, where they don't tell people, whether on purpose or by default, that the doctorate is only in one field. There are a lot of people out there that give the impression their doctorate is in psychology as well. This is extremely unethical. The first things you should talk about with a new counselor is boundaries, ethics, goals, and credentials. Don't ever see anyone until you've done deep research into their medical history. Anytime I see a new doctor or psychologist, I go on to the state licensure website to make sure that there hasn't been any reports filed against this person within the last 10 years. And it's real easy to do. And just because no reports have been filed against a pastor or psychologist doesn't mean they're a good shrink. It just means they've gotten away with it. For now, anyways. And not all psychologists are created equal, any more than all doctors are the best people you could ever meet. It's by person and by ethics and behavior. So, if you choose to go to a pastor for a religious issue, that is perfectly fine. It's not a behavior I would do because I'm an atheist. But if you have questions, doubts, curiosity about religion, and maybe you're struggling with something, go to a pastor who's equipped with usually a doctorate in theology to help you. Don't go to a pastor who doesn't have a doctorate in psychology for mind and mental assistance. Because they're not trained usually to be able to do that ethically and legally. Because when you research a lot of pastors, how many of them actually have a master's and doctorate in psychology? I would say maybe half. I'm not sure what the statistic is. Let me